Hi there, everybody. My name is Tim Lee. I'm the director of the Texas Retired Teachers Association, and I'm joined today with my good friends Nancy Byler and Larry Yawn. And I want to welcome everybody to our live broadcast. We've got about, I don't know, how many weeks do we have left, Larry? Do you know, of session?
Oh, we're getting close to the end here. About three.
Yeah, probably 3 weeks. Yeah. So
21 days.
How many?
21.
Man, Nancy's got it down. She knows exactly what it is. So, last week, Nancy, we were dealing with some internet problems. So I'm sorry that we weren't able to have you on the broadcast last week, but we're glad to see you here today. So thanks for being a part of the group.
No rain today, no thunderstorm.
All right. Well, I see we've got, folks joining us, and y'all, hopefully you'll check in. And if you see my eyes diverting one way or the other, I'm trying to look at the comments as they come in, and we'll answer questions to the best of our ability. But really what we want to do today is just bring everybody up to speed on what's going on. As Nancy said a few minutes ago, we have about 21 days left of session. We're getting up against calendar deadlines, and calendar deadlines for bills have to do with, are they out of a committee? Are they onto the House floor, to the Senate floor? Have they moved from the chamber they originated in to another chamber so that they can deal with them? And so over the next 3 weeks, we're going to see a real tightening up of things that may actually get done. And as many of you know, we've had quite a few successes already. And we talked about those last week. It's important to always keep in mind some of the things that you all have helped achieve. And so, we are grateful for the work that you all helped us achieve on the budget. It's about $5 billion currently in appropriation to TRS and our healthcare programs. We have advanced a very good sunset bill, lots of victories in there for retirees, including disclosure on bonus payments and ombudsman, some return to work improvements. I think overall the agency feels comfortable with what's been going on. We've seen them talk about the communications discussions. So a lot of that is going to start taking shape over the next several weeks. We've also been successful in advancing other major reforms on return to work and the 12-month exclusion. So, but that's probably not what you all are tuning in to hear about today. Most of you are going to tune in today and want to know about, what's going on with the cost of living raise. Is there advancement on the supplemental payment bill? Does one look, more possible than another? I've had a number of emails recently of folks that have said, hey, I left the TRS care program, and now that it's more stable, I'd like to come back, especially since my doctor said they actually did take the health insurance instead of telling me when we made those changes in 2017, they weren't going to take the health insurance. So really, those are the three bills that we're focused on. And I may ask Nancy and Larry to help me with bill numbers, but let's go right to the heart of the matter. If you don't mind, we'll start talking about House Bill 3214. And, I just want to say, hi to some of our folks at Joe FC. San Marcos is here. Andrews is here. Baytown is here. Louisville is here. Palm Valley is here. Lots of folks from District 13. We got Mission. We got the Valley. District 17, Freestone County. All right, so we got a full house coming on. Lots of Facebook, lots of YouTube. So we're glad to see y'all. Thanks for joining us. Larry, as we start talking about House Bill 3214, I think it's safe to say that bill has hit a roadblock. And it's a significant roadblock. The bill has essentially stalled. And it's been in what we call the calendars committee for a couple of weeks now. And so part of the reasoning that we're hearing that bill has been stalled is that it may have a higher price tag than was originally discussed. And so we're going to get into that today. But just for people that are tuning in, we have a certain understanding of what it takes for TRS retirees to receive a cost of living raise. So you're a TRS retiree, you've been around this for a while. To your understanding, can you tell our viewing audience what you understood the ground rules to be for us to be able to receive a raise?
That's something that I think we have carried around in our hip pocket for several decades now. I think most everybody on this call probably knows the magic answer to that. We have always before been told that if a benefit increase is going to be paid for out of the fund, that the fund would have to be actuarially sound. That was defined as being able to pay our commitment to retirees in a period of 31 years or less. So 31 years was the magic there. And we have always been told that we don't want to adopt something that would jeopardize the fund and put it back over a 31-year period of time to pay off our debt. So I guess the magic answer, Tim, is the same. It's 31 years. That's what we have been told for the decades that I've been involved in retirement issues.
Yeah, I know, Nancy, you've been retired for a couple of years as well. Is that kind of the same thing that you remember over the years of your being retired, being former president of this association, and kind of, I remember the sessions that you were president, we were really pushing towards trying to do, improving funding for TRS and so on and so forth. But I mean, that's kind of as Larry said, that's kind of the magic definition that retirees have heard. Isn't that right?
Yes, as far as I know, since I've been involved, which is 15 years, it's been 31. So
Yeah.
when I heard another number the other night, I had to put my mind in a different mindset and listen closely to see what was coming down the pike. So yes, 31 is that number.
So as we are sort of hinting at here, there seems to be a different set of circumstances that are being talked about as it relates to providing a cost of living raise to retirees. And so I'm going to, I hate to do this on a Friday afternoon. It's such a beautiful day, but I'm going to get into the weeds just a little bit. I think that our members need to hear some of what could be going on. And so we know that the teacher retirement system today has a present fund value of, I don't know, $180+ billion. And that money that we have in the trust fund that's invested isn't to provide retirement security for only our TRS retirees. It's intended to provide retirement security for all TRS members. And the beauty of our system and the work that we have done is that over the last several sessions, our association has worked in partnership with the legislature to ensure that we will be able to have a fully funded pension fund within a couple of decades. It used to be 80-something years. Right. But last session, especially last session, we all worked together as stakeholders and legislators, active teachers, retired teachers, school superintendents, ancillary personnel, everybody came together and said, let's put together a funding plan. And that funding plan was memorialized in a bill that we all refer to often as Senate Bill 12. So that was last session. And over the next few years, that bill started to ramp up increases so that the TRS Pension Trust Fund would receive additional contributions, be able to invest those dollars, and earn enough interest to pay down that unfunded liability. And when we talk about that 31-year number, that's really what we're talking about. We want to be able as a state to say that our unfunded liability is able to be amortized or paid for in a, this is probably not the marker that people use when they discuss it. But if you think about an active teacher who starts when, she or he's 21 or 22 years old, they may have a 30-year career. So over that 30-year career, they're going to make contributions. The state's going to put in, the school district's going to put in, and we don't need to pay that 21-year-old retirement benefit today. So we're not going to pay that for 3 decades until the future. So what we're doing when we make these investments in the retirement system is we are earning enough additional assets to ensure that all of those active school employees that are teaching in the schools right now have retirement security, and that all of our current retirees have retirement security. And the reason that we have that rule that Nancy and Larry talked about is so that we don't jeopardize the future retirement security for current expanded benefits. And so we've always understood the rules to be whatever you want to do, you can do. The legislature can authorize, let me say it that way. Whatever the legislature wants to authorize, the legislature can authorize as a benefit increase for retirees, so long as it doesn't push us beyond that 31-year threshold. Otherwise, we can't do it. And so, Larry, I get these emails, people saying, well, why is it that some people are left out of the increase this time around? And it's because more recent retirees simply, from a inflationary perspective, they haven't had as much of inflationary problems or loss of buying power in their retirement benefits as more long-term retirees have. I think that's probably the best way I could say that. So, but we also can't include it because otherwise we go over the 31 years. So we know that House Bill 3214 had a cost of $3.6 billion. That is the actual cost to provide the benefit enhancement. And we know this because when the bill has a hearing, the teacher retirement system looks at the language and they say, we need to assign certain fiscal values to what this will cost. Nancy, is that a cost to the state budget that we're talking about? Or is that a cost to something else?
It's not a cost to the state budget. That's not what we're asking for.
Right. So where is that cost actually falling onto?
The TRS?
Absolutely. Onto the TRS fund. And so when we talk about having a cost to the TRS fund, the system says, look, there are two parts, two elements to that cost. There's the total dollar value amount, which is $3.6 billion, which is what they've told us. But there's also a period of time that we will need in order to let all of those contributions come together and work for us and let the interest pay for this and all the other. So it will expand the amount of years that we have in unfunded liability until we have a 100% funded system. So today, all things being equal, without passing a raise for retirees, in 26 years, our retirement system will have a 100% fully funded pension trust fund. If we were to adopt House Bill 3214, instead of 26 years from now that taking place, it would be 29 years. So we're adding $3.6 billion in additional liability, and we're also adding in 3 years of time to pay for it. Now, Larry, to my knowledge, in all the years that I've been here and all the years prior to that, that's sort of been the extent when you're trying to explain the cost of a benefit increase. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So
some of our people who are watching are nodding their heads on the chat saying, yeah, I know this. So.
Yes. Why is Tim spending so much time telling us something we already know? And it's because there's a new element that we have been introduced to this legislative session called the finance cost of providing the raise. And, TRTA made it pretty clear early on in session that this concept of a finance cost is something we simply disagree with. And the reason that we disagree with it is because of how you get to what looks to be a very inflated cost of providing the benefit versus the actual cost of providing it. And so what the statement, the actuarial statement released by TRS says, and other entities like the PRB and some other groups, GASB, I think they looked at some GASB regulations on this, but essentially when you look at this sort of thing, you're kind of taking TRS's number and they're saying 3 years in additional amount of time to pay for it to go from 26 to 29. The actual cost to do it is $3.6 billion. It's going to add that amount of money to the unfunded liability. And so what TRS is saying is that they want the legislature to fully fund that amount of $3.6 billion, or to make up for that amount in increased appropriations, or something that essentially says, hey, we're going to add new liability onto the system, and here's the way we're going to pay for it. And we're going to increase those contributions up front. And because the legislature isn't doing that through the budget process, the retirement system is saying, well, we're going to look at this a different way. We're going to account for this $3.6 billion in unfunded liability as almost a separate part of the UAAL. And we're going to accumulate or account for 26 years of interest at 7.25% on the value dollar cost of what it actually costs to pay retirees this benefit enhancement. And so that by the time we get to years 27, 28, and 29, we'll be able to pay for the thing in full. So in other words, it's like taking out a loan and having interest charged for 26 years, and we're really not applying any funding to helping pay down that unfunded liability. It doesn't really change the cost of it at all. As a matter of fact, if you think about what TRS is saying, they're saying that even if we didn't have any additional revenue over the next 26 years, we are still able to amortize the cost of that pension increase so that in years 27, 28, and 29, at full value of earning 7.25% on that amount of money over that period of time, we are still able to absorb that cost without making the system not actuarially sound. So you could look at this a lot of different ways, but unfortunately, the way that some members of the legislature are looking at this statement is they're looking past the actual cost of the raise, which is $3.6 billion, or that it adds 3 years of unfunded liability, and they're looking at the number that says $22 billion, and people are thinking that is a cost in year 27, 28, and 29 that they're going to have to come up with, I guess, to pay for the cost of the raise. And it is really confusing for a policymaker or for a TRS retiree who has been around for a while to hear, if we help retirees with this benefit increase, it's going to cost $22 billion. And that sentiment, that idea of financing this over a period of 26 years without actually applying any additional earnings that the retirement system is going to make, or any other contribution increases that may change, that's a big difference between 22 billion versus 3.6. And I think that because of this confusion and because of the fact that people are not used to hearing it, a lot of legislators that I've talked to, Nancy, said the same thing you did. We can provide retirees a raise so long as the system is able to keep within that 31-year period of time. And this new number has really just sort of thrown off some of the folks who may be looking at this and saying, oh my goodness, this thing doesn't cost $3 billion. It costs $22 billion. And that's where I think that we have really lost traction, unfortunately, in this discussion. And so I'm going to take just a quick pause there. I know, Nancy, Larry, you've kind of followed these discussions too. Help me. Velma, I'm looking at a comment by Velma right now, and it says, sounds confusing. Absolutely. Try to explain all this stuff within the 140 days and making sure that people understand what's going on. I'll say this, because I think it sort of puts a fine edge to it. All of the numbers all of the numbers that we talked about, if we were to pass a raise for retired teachers today, and that were to go into effect, and the TRS increase those benefits by the 6% capped at $100. In the first year, the cost of doing that, the money coming out of the trust fund, would be about $400 million. And that's based on TRTA estimates. We haven't seen a chart released by TRS that showed how much per year would be paid out, but it's not $3 billion. It's not $22 billion. The actual amount in increased take-home pay for around 400,000 retirees is about $400 million. And in the next year, that $400 million goes down a little bit. And then the year after that, that number, which may be $398 million, goes down a little bit, and it goes down a little bit. So the reason is because when you give a group of people a raise and it's a one-time increase, that's there forever. It's part of their monthly benefits forever, but it doesn't keep going. We don't have a 3% this year and a 3% next year and a 3% the year after that. It's this one-time bump in people's annuities. So it's there forever. That captured group of people changes. It doesn't go up over time. It goes down over time. And so that's why the cost of this thing is so confusing when you're an elected official and you're looking at, thousands of bills, and you see price tags on these things that all of a sudden the report says, well, it's going to do this and it's going to do this. And then you see one number that says, oh, but at the end of the 26 years, it's actually going to cost $22 billion. And that whole concept seems to have thrown a monkey wrench into this whole idea of being able to advance a bill for TRS. And it certainly has confused all of us in thinking about what does the future of a raise look like for retirees in general. And somebody had a comment, and we've had a lot of comments here in just a few seconds, and they've gone off the screen, but somebody said, well, does TRS look at the compensation or the bonus payments the same way? So if we had a bonus payment today of $300,000, do we really look at it and say, over 26 years, that $300,000 actually costs $1 million or something? I don't think that's the way it works. I think in this situation, we're looking at it as something that is a different case scenario, and one that has raised a lot of questions for both policymakers and TRS retirees alike. So that being said, Nancy, Larry, where did I screw that up, or any comments you want to add on that?
Well, Nancy, you want to start? No, not really. I don't think you screwed it up, Tim. I think it's just such a confluence of new information and new ideas coming into a debate that was already on the legislative agenda that has delayed everything, basically, at this point. When you look at it, I hate to introduce this element in right now, but when you look at what they're trying to do, right now they've got 3 weeks left, and they've got hundreds of bills probably still left in Calendars Committee. And when you look at what they're trying to do, to give them some benefit of the doubt, we might want to say they're trying to be extremely careful. But the point we need, and that they don't do something that they didn't intend to do. But the point that I want to make from saying that is that we have provided from the outset, the very first hearing, information that was testified to in committee as sworn testimony, appearing before the legislative committees. And that testimony at the outset was the $3.6 billion figure. And that is what we ourselves, working with our own consultant, said it would be in that neighborhood, a little over $3 billion for the cost of it. So we are basically confirming the studies that TRS originally started with. And now we have a little bit different way of looking at it, and that is a hard obstacle to overcome. That is what the people who are watching this show today are asking about. Well, okay, where is it? Why is it held up? Where is it held up? What can we do, type of thing. So, the statement was a good summary of what we have been facing for a period of more than a month now, Tim, by the way. That bill has been in calendars for over a month now. And so our membership needs to understand, that that is the obstacle we've got right now.
Yeah. So somebody, I love the comment. Somebody said, Tim, get to the point. Here's the bottom line. The cost of providing the raise is $3.6 billion.
Right.
It would add 3 years of additional liability to the system that could be easily paid for as TRS continue to earn decent amounts of return on the investment.
Right.
And the legislature sees a different number. And it's a number that we hadn't really seen coming, which is called the finance cost. And I say that we didn't see it coming because we've never talked about providing cost of living adjustments to retirees with anything other than the statutory provisions that exist today that the legislature can authorize a raise for retirees so long as that raise does not increase the fund value to something beyond the unfunded liability, something beyond 31 years. So if we knew coming into the session what the rules had been, to us, to TRTA members, it feels like the goalpost got moved. So instead of being able to say, we know that providing the raise is going to cost this much and we're able to do it, we're hearing, well, in actuality, there's this new financing cost that we have to be concerned about. And it's much higher than what the actual cost is. And again, the only way I can say that is that TRTA simply disagrees with how this has been represented, and the fact that the amount of dollars that are actually paid out trumps everything else. So it is unfortunate that there's confusing information that's been brought into this discussion, because all elected officials that I'm aware of that have gone to meet with you, to meet with TRTA members over the years have said, hey, let's keep working. Let's keep getting this system to be actuarially sound. Let's get to that point. And when we get there and we can afford the raise, we'll come back and, that'll be something that we'll take up and consider. And so I think that's sort of the bottom line, is that we're stalled in a committee where we're trying to get a bill out where other elected officials may have come in and said, hey, you know what, that bill may be more expensive than what we know. Let's slow it down. I don't know everything that goes on behind the scenes, and I certainly am not privy to conversations with, some elected officials and other elected officials. But if you just go on what we're looking at, which is a bill that would provide a benefit increase for retirees, all of the stars on our side look like they've aligned to be able to provide retirees the increase, except for this idea that there's a new funding or financing cost, which is just, as I said, very confusing to what the reality of the situation is, that the cost is something different. So very little is simple in the world of pension fund management. And so I'm trying to make it as direct as I can. So then I see there's another member, Nancy, who said, no COLA, but what about House Bill 3507? It is a one-time cost. And what would that 13th check be? So, we started off talking about the COLA, and, for all of the folks that are saying, hey, I'm not ready to be done with this idea of, pushing for the COLA. I'll come back to that in a second. But there is another bill, House Bill 3507, Nancy, that I think your state rep actually is the one who authored that bill. A guy named Glenn Rogers, who's a relatively new member. He's a freshman member, but he's been working a bill pretty hard. 3507 would provide a supplemental increase or one-time 13th check to retirees. And that 13th check that bill has a bunch of co-sponsors, if I'm not mistaken. Nancy, do you remember how many?
107, I think.
Yeah, 107. So
it's more than that. It's 108.
It's more than that now?
118 or so.
100, okay.
All right, so we've got another bill out there that it wouldn't be a COLA, but it would provide retirees some additional income during the session, and 118 sponsors, and that one's tied up as well. I have not studied the fiscal note on that bill as much as I have the one on 3214. Nancy, do you or Larry, do you remember if they had a financing cost on that bill?
I have not heard it.
Okay.
No.
It would increase the amortization period for TRS by 1 year. So we would go from 26 to 27. And so that part I remember, but I don't remember TRS if they put one of their financing costs on that bill as well. I think it does. I may have to look that up before we end the phone call or this discussion. But that bill is also tied up in the calendars committee. And with as many bill sponsors as that one has, its fate is still on shaky ground. And so we had another bill that was in calendars. We do have another bill in calendars. And I think is that House Bill 2022?
Yes.
Yes.
So that is a bill by our good friend Drew Darby, Representative Darby, would help retirees who left the healthcare plan. Maybe their doctor told them they weren't going to take the health insurance. They found out later they did. They wish they could come back. We call that internally, we call that the golden ticket. That one also is held up in calendars. So, it's clear, gosh, y'all, I wish I could say, what, I think there's movement here, that we've got things that are, potentially going to shake out. But with 3 weeks left, it is hard to say what is still possible or what is not going to be possible to get out of calendars. Even if we get these bills out of calendars, there's so little time left on the clock. It makes that work, that much harder. But here's the deal. We're not giving up on anything. We're not giving up on a COLA. We're not giving up on moving 3507, the 13th check bill, or House Bill 2022. Our job in TRTA is to work for the members. And as long as there is time left on the clock, we're going to work for our members. So Nancy, I know that we've got a game plan that we've been, advancing, week after week. That's going to continue. So what is the game plan that our members need to be aware of right now?
I think right now, and if people that know me know what I want to do, but I'm not going to say that. I think the thing that we have to do right now is put ourselves back when we were in school and we have an angry parent come in that throws a fit, and we have to put on our professional hat. Even though we really want to pick up the phone, we want to stomp our feet and throw a fit, we've got to maintain.
Oh no.
Don't y'all love live internet? Nancy may come back, but Larry, do you want to pick up? I think she was saying we're going to maintain our professional decorum and we're going to keep fighting.
Well, she was explaining basically that the plan has not changed because we laid it out knowing that we would have to influence people all the way through the process. And the way you influence legislators all the way through the process is to try to factually show them why your public policy proposal is the best thing since sliced bread. And in this case, that is absolutely true. You've got testimony for every one of these bills that indicated a fiscal note to it for it, which we had concurred with, and which is still there as a matter of record on those bills. Nobody has attempted to officially change their recorded testimony, as far as I'm aware, that it would cost more than $3.6 billion. And so the facts are laid out pretty clearly, and they are documented in the record of the committees. And that is what we need to continue to stand our case on, that this is what it will cost. This is the way we have been proceeding for several decades, and it is the type of thing that we were asked to participate in and to help happen. Remember, when the legislature added increased contributions from the state, They also had increased contributions from active teachers. So active teachers are putting in more money to help the growth in the fund, as well as the state and as well as the earnings off the corpus of the fund. So we need to be sure that we stay on course. We spend the time that we've got trying to get these bills out of committee for a debate on the floor. And then from there, we can move into a different plan if it is necessary. But right now, it's stay the course.
Yeah, and Larry, I'm looking at some of these comments, and it's important for our folks to know that we hear them. And some of these comments, somebody said, the COLA is so needed. People are financially in distress, and it's been 17 years, and I haven't had anything. And we worked hard in 2013 to improve some funding on TRS, and we were able to win a cost of living adjustment for people who retired 8/31/2004 before. And the comments that I was there, I worked through this, and I was in those sessions as you worked through those sessions. And the comment that I heard was, hey, when the system gets solvent enough, we're going to come back and we're going to finish the job that we started. We're going to come back and help the retirees that didn't get the raise. Well, that was, for these folks who've been retired since September of 2004, it's been 17 years. And they've suffered through a pandemic and inflation and winter storms and hurricanes and inflation. And we look at the coming into the session, everything that we worked on has been based on making sure that we can get to the point where you can provide a cost of living raise and not move the system beyond 31 years. Somebody said, is the $22 billion number factual? And I'm sure it's factual that over 26 years, if you held on to $3.6 billion and charged yourself 7.25% interest, that at the end of that period of time, if you had to pay for that $3.6 billion that you borrowed 26 years earlier, you would have to pay $22 billion. However, the hard thing for us to come to grips with is that TRS isn't giving itself a loan. They're not charging themselves interest. It really is that the pension trust fund is going to pay the money out to the retirees, and TRS is going to continue to pay down the UAAL based on all of their investments and all of their management, lowering management fees, all of the things that they have going on. It just makes it hard for us to think that, that all of a sudden retirees have to have a new set of standards before we could potentially win an increase for them, especially when for the last 15 or more years, the standard has been, well, as long as we're less than 31, and so long as what we do doesn't push us over 31, we get to that moment. I think this is the hard part for all of us, is we get to the moment, and then all of a sudden it is, well, it's better if you're 10 years or 20 years instead of less than 31. So it's, I'm sure the people who are doing that have the best of intentions to try to make sure that people understand how pension funds work, but it has certainly slowed down the amazing work that our members have done. And from the red letter campaign to calling their elected officials, et cetera, we have done everything that we need to do. And we're going to keep doing it because, again, that as an association that advocates for the well-being of its members, when the legislature's in session, that's what we're going to do. So I'm still looking through comments, and I know that, Larry, we probably want to make sure that our members know that because on Facebook Friday on May 7th, just because we're having this discussion, we're not done. We're just giving you all kind of the update as to why we think House Bill 3507, House Bill 3214, House Bill 2022, those bills have not moved out of calendars. And so, without having deep on the floor knowledge with the folks that are making those decisions, we're making the best guesses that we can that this is sort of what's going on. And I think they're pretty good guesses at this point in time. What other comments do you want to have about that, Larry?
I've seen several statements, comments in the comment section about we need an action plan. What do we do next? That sort of stuff. The action plan has been in place the entire session, and yes, it includes testimony before every relevant committee on each relevant bill. So just to make sure that everybody understands, that is in place. It is directed through the TRTA Legislative Committee with our district legislative chairs working through the county units to advise them as to we need this to be done at this time. The legislative chairs are definitely the people who help promote that to occur in the county units around the state, as well as the system, Tim, that you use from the state office as far as our alerts are concerned and the inside lines and things of that nature. So those things are occurring. And we, as I said earlier, we want to continue to work that as long as the time allows us to work it. And we still do have a few days to get this bill on the House floor.
Yeah, I know that people are trying to process what we're talking about. And somebody said, TRTA, come up with a concrete plan to explain what's going on. The best concrete plan that I can tell everybody is House Bill 3214 has a fiscal impact on the pension trust fund that says it costs $3.6 billion and that the system can fully afford and fully fund the cost of that increase by not making the system unstable. We can do it and still be actuarially sound based on not going over 31 years. We go from 26 to 29. I mean, most elected officials know the same thing that you all do, which is that as long as the retirees can have a raise, if the legislature approves it, so long as what they do doesn't move us above 31 years. All this other talk about financing costs versus actual costs versus, what does every year cost? And that's why we didn't get into some of those things, is because the real cost of doing it is 3 years of additional amortization period, $3.6 billion. And that's money that will go into the pockets of over 400,000 Texans, 95% of which do not have full Social Security benefits, that are getting wept or getting GPO'd. These individuals live in Texas. 95% of the folks who would receive the COLA live in Texas. And that economy in that local town benefits greatly from retirees having a little extra money in their pockets to pay for their needs. I was on the phone, Larry, this morning with some of my friends from California, retired teachers, talking about fixing the WEP and the GPO. And the president of the California Retired Teachers said, look, retired teachers are not saving for a rainy day. Their needs are now. We need to help these people now. And we can do that. And I think that's the message that we have to stay strong on. This just is as simple as it can be. TRS is fiscally solvent enough to provide retirees a raise without costing the state budget a dime more. Because our investments have done well, because the state of Texas has been so good and done so many right things, our pension system's in better shape than what we expected. Larry, we talked about this last week. We came into the session and our number one goal was to make sure that the fund would be able to receive the money based on the pandemic economy that was promised to us in Senate Bill 12. And the legislature said, hey, we've got that. We're going to do it. And we are so proud of them. Very proud, grateful. And then we worked on our sunset stuff. And TRS gave a report at the end of February saying, hey, you know, things are pretty good at the retirement system. We're $175 billion and we're actuarially sound. And then a month later, they talked about how the investments have gotten even better, and they were around $185 billion in total value.
Right.
And what I know is, because some people are going to be mad about this. If our investment fund managers are adding a lot of extra income by making smart investment decisions and they hit their bonuses, because we've made hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars more because they're amazing investors, I don't have a problem with them getting their bonuses. But what I do have a problem with is all of that work going into getting us there, and then we get the ball to take the shot, and we don't take the shot. We don't help the retirees. So that's, there's a lot of emotion that's kind of built into this, and we know that you all are just wanting to help get this thing done. That's what we want to do. We want to try to get something done. So as Nancy was saying, going in and yelling at legislators is probably not going to help win. But going in and presenting a reasonable case and continuing to say, look, we support providing retirees a raise through House Bill 3214 or passing HB 3507, those are items that we would like for you to continue to push before we run out of time.
And Tim, Nancy texted me. Apparently, she's having trouble trying to get back on, obviously.
Yeah.
Texted me, and apparently she's looking also at the comments. She suggested something we're overlooking. She said some of the folks on the call are asking for talking points to be able to talk to their legislators. That document has existed for several months now and has been distributed 2 or 3 times, but it's very possible that people on this call who did not see it, we can make that available to them again, can we not?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, y'all who are kind of faithful viewers of Facebook Friday know that I'm not a big fan of doing a major release on a Friday, because if you start sending emails on Friday, you get a lot of staffers who, may leave or they may not see it until Monday. So I'd rather start, fresh on Monday. So we're working on an update, and we may get it out sooner than that just has some of those talking points, Larry, that says, hey, look, let's stay focused on the main thing here. And the main thing is retirees need help. The pension system is able to afford it. If we have a downturn in the market, by the time the next session rolls around, it could be, years before we're in as good a position as what we are today to help these folks. So that's just something else that I think we need to convey to our elected officials.
And there was another question I happened to notice as you were answering from one of our district presidents who was asking the question about the $22 billion as a part of testimony that was included at the time, the bills were heard in committee. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say I did not hear any reference of the $22 billion in testimony. Do you recall hearing it?
Yeah, it was there, Larry. They TRS did lay out their actuarial statement. It's online for everybody to see. It's part of the record that there's and I didn't bring it on today's phone, Facebook Live and whatever. So, but it says, if you look at the statement, it's got kind of a middle section that's in a highlighted red box, and it says, passage of the bill would have no fiscal impact on the state budget or something to that effect. And then right after that, it starts talking about how the TRS views the financing of the $3.6 billion and essentially accumulating 26 years of interest on that $3.6 billion so that we get to years 27, 28, and 29. And they say, when we get there, that's how much we've had to accumulate in addition to pay for that $3.6 billion. So you can read it, and hopefully it'll make more sense now when you do read it.
I'm glad I asked that as a question rather than making a declaratory statement. Thanks for correcting it.
Yeah. Look, I know the legislature deals with a lot of weighty issues. I know they love to try to make TRS as big a priority. And I think that's why you see all of these people signed on to these bills. I mean, 80 or 90 co-sponsors on a COLA bill, 100 plus 110 or more co-sponsors on a supplemental payment bill. I mean, I think the majority of the Texas legislature gets the need of the retirees. And we've said this before on this show, 130,000 people make $1,000 a month or less. We just talked earlier about how WEP and GPO affects so many people and they lose that income. And so, I really believe they want to help. Trying to process all of this and make good decisions on everything else they've got going on, I'm not going to make excuses for them, but I will say that, to the best of our ability, we need to help. We need to help cut through some of that noise and say, look, we know you're doing a great job. We know that you're helping Texas. We know that you're representing your district and the entire state. But let us point out a few things about our issues that we think, you should know. And we pursue it until the last minute. And then, we'll pursue it more after that. So we're not giving up. We just wanted everybody in our membership to know kind of what we think's going on. So Larry, what else do we need to close with today?
Well, there've been a lot of comments relative to WEP, and we always try to get that worked into these conversations because we have so many members who are affected by it, and everybody knows that's a federal issue. It's not something that the Texas legislature can change in one way or the other. However, we do need to let you know that Senate Concurrent Resolution 17 is a resolution which asks the Congress to reform or to actually repeal the windfall elimination provision. Senate Concurrent Resolution 17 will be on the House floor calendar on Tuesday. It's on a local calendar. Local calendars are calendars where there is not dissent on the bills, so it will pass. When it passes, it has already passed the Senate. It's a Senate resolution in the House. When it passes the House, it will be passed, period. And that will put the Texas legislature on record asking all members of Congress, specifically the Texas members of Congress, to repeal WEP. So there is one additional step toward getting that issue itself, so the attention that it needs at the national level. You referred that you were talking to some people in California today about it. We need to reinforce what we said last week, that this is a new Congress. We have now only begun to seek the signing on to the bills and getting the support for them. It's our intention to have full support for it from the Texas congressional delegation. We have achieved that in the past. We see no reason that we won't be able to this time. And this is a bill that is in the House of Representatives at the current time. It has not gone to the Senate, so neither Senator Cruz nor Senator Cornyn have been asked to sign on to it as of yet. There were some specific references to the two of them, so I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood the focus right now: new Congress, getting House members signed on, moving it to the Senate, actually passing it this time before we lose too much initiative toward that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate all the work that's been done on that. We're gonna push on that aggressively. Congress is hearing from our national partners, and we're a big part of that. So getting that to move forward is great. We've got a few bills that are still going through education committees, and we're gonna make sure that your voice is heard. We're going to keep fighting. All we ask is that you continue to work with good faith and with our professional educator, TRTA voice, and know that every day that the session's around, we've got an opportunity, and so we have time. So let's all agree that we're going to be back here next Friday, if not sooner. I am, Larry, thinking about having a live update maybe midweek next week, since we have some calendar deadlines coming up next week. It may be appropriate for us to come on a little earlier, but we'll let y'all know. Look for some talking points and dot points from us over the weekend, if not first thing Monday. And we'll make sure that we have some click here action alerts that we can continue to push our message of cooperation, our message of strength, and our message of making sure that we are all intent on helping TRS retirees. And that's what we want to do. So y'all have a great weekend, and we'll keep reading your comments and we'll respond to as many of them as you can. Go back to Facebook, regular Facebook after this, and YouTube, leave your comments, and we'll continue to respond there as well. Thank you all so much, and have a wonderful weekend. We'll talk to you again next week.